Hello and welcome to the CX Files for November 6, 2025. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm over in London, UK this week.
Well, you're catching me in Montego Bay, Mark. I am over here for a vendor event, and I am delighted to be back in Jamaica. Always fun to spend some time in the sun and hanging out with my friends here in this beautiful country.
Well, it's always fun to be in Jamaica, unless you're visiting that yacht club that we once went to for our dinner.
Well, yes, I do remember that, although I have very, very hazy memories the following day, as I think both you and I ate something that perhaps wasn't as salubrious as it might have been.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think the chef forgot their hygiene training that day.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting plane ride home, I can recall.
All right, so let's talk about the subject for this week because I think it's one that you enjoy talking about and get quite exercised about, and that's AI. Back in September or August, I saw a Customer Think article, and it was written by Paul O'Hara, who's the EVP for Business Development EMEA at Teleperformance, or TP as they've now shortened the name to. But Paul wrote this article, and it was titled AI Won't End BPO, It'll Supercharge It. And if you look at what Paul was saying, effectively was that AI is not about to finish what BPOs are doing, and the need for agents within a customer service environment. There's a lot of people that have been like kind of doom mongering and talking about buying some software and switching off the contact center and handling everything automatically. And what Paul is sort of saying is this is all far too simplistic. Handling customer problems, some parts can be automated, but a lot of it still requires people involved in those processes. And also there's more than just the agents. What the BPO is offering is a framework. It's offering compliance. It's offering data control. So all these kind of other aspects that go on top of the very simplistic view that maybe software can start replacing all of this. So I called him up and just said, look, I read the article. It was very interesting, and we had a conversation about it.
All I can say is finally, some clear and logical discussion about this. And you couldn't find a better person than Paul O'Hara. I've known Paul for well over a decade. He's truly somebody who understands our industry and is a pragmatist and a realist about what's going on. I would concur with him 100%. And I say the saying with full disclosure, I have not listened to the interview yet. So that's why I'm really anxious to go to the interview to find out a little bit more Paul's thoughts, Mark. But when it comes right down to it, there is the potential for supercharging using technology, using AI to supercharge or to energize the different tools across the CX ecosystem. And I've been saying this for months, if not years. This is where this technology really can see the rubber hit the road. I'm glad that Paul is positioning it in this sense, because as far as I'm concerned, we do need a dose of realism. We do need a dose of pragmatism as we talk about what technology can do. It's not about replacing people. In certain cases, yes, you can have automated solutions that are powered by AI technology that will replace some people within the scope of the frontline automation elements. But talking about what it can do to make things more efficient, to make things faster, to make things more accurate, that's a discussion we need to be having in CX, whether it's captive or whether it's outsourcing.
And I think there's also been a tendency in the commentary around this that the big guys, the concentrics, TPs, these guys are kind of wedded to these enormous contact centers, and they're not focused on the technology. And you listen to Paul talking about what he's been working on, and it's the complete opposite. But the point is that what they're doing is kind of turbocharging what the agents can do, how productive they can be, how you can make their job better. As well as offering better automation for some processes, but it's not about replacing, everything that works and just believing that, there's some sort of simple software solution that can do all of this. It's a much more complex solution.
Totally agree. And I think that what we're discussing here, and I think what Paul's going to be getting into, is the fact that if it's not broke, you don't necessarily have to fix it. I mean, you can optimize things, you can make things work even better than they actually are. But I always like to make this comparison that CX today, with the whole AI technology element to it, is sort of like, and Mark, you'll know this because you and I both have a background in computing back from early points in our careers. Mid 90s, when all of a sudden computers started getting the Pentium processors. Well, then all of a sudden, a program that took 3 minutes to load took 3 seconds to load. It just made it that much simpler when you booted up or you tried opening up an application. This is exactly what AI has the potential to do in CX, and I'm really pumped to hear what Paul has to say in terms of the work that he's doing and what he's getting involved with to make this better from a TP angle, because really that will cascade down across the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go to the discussion about this, how AI is actually supercharging BPO with Paul O'Hara. Paul, it's great to get you on the podcast. Now, I read a customer think article that you wrote recently. I think it was in August, and you said that AI is not going to replace BPO. It's actually going to supercharge BPO. What made you sit down and write that? Because, AI has been one of the big trends of this year and last year in this industry. But what made you feel that you needed to sort of make a statement like that?
Yeah, Mark, it's great to see you again, by the way. And thanks for allowing me the opportunity to chat with you today as well. Always something I look forward to very, very much indeed. I wrote my article because I got pretty fed up, is probably a better way of putting it, reading the many, many articles from doom mongers, really citing that AI was the end of BPO. And as my article says, I don't actually see it as the end of BPO. I actually think it's the beginning of the BPO evolution. So, just to elaborate a little on that, Mark, I mentioned that while automation and virtual contact centers are on the rise, true customer experience still really demands operational scale, human empathy, flexibility, compliance, all really areas where BPOs excel, if I can say that. So the real opportunity, as I see it, really does lie in blending AI with human expertise to deliver smarter, scalable, and more value-driven CX as well. So my belief, and hence my sort of the catalyst, if you like, for me writing the article, was my belief that BPOs that embrace this transformation will be the ones that thrive well into the 2030s and who knows, beyond, I hope.
Yeah. And so my understanding of your argument from what you wrote and what you just said then is that you can't just throw a piece of software at this. There's a lot more to building a CX solution than just installing some software and then firing it up. If you work with a BPO or a CX expert, you've got the operational processes, you've got the infrastructure, you've got the regulatory compliance and all that kind of stuff in place that you can add the automation to all of that framework. But if you haven't got that kind of framework, then that's where it's difficult then, yeah?
Oh, Mark, you're absolutely right. Spot on, most definitely. I think BPOs, they already have that operational backbone that most brands would find impossible to build internally. So I'm thinking along the lines of governance frameworks, multilingual capability, workforce flexibility, and real tried and tested best practices across markets and regardless of markets, if I can say that. So that foundation makes it much, much easier for BPOs to design, deploy, and scale customer experiences that actually work rather than experimenting in isolation and hoping for the best with sort of plug and play software solutions, if you like.
Yeah. And the bottom line, I guess, appears to be that you can still have people involved in the solution, but you can use the technology to augment them and make them more productive, make them more efficient. Is that the sort of immediate way that you see AI being applied in CX then?
Yeah, immediately, Mark, and thanks for saying that as well. It's very, very important. I think the real power of AI isn't in cutting people, certainly not at the moment. It's more in empowering them. So when routine tasks are automated, interaction expert agents can focus on higher value interactions where empathy, where judgment, where problem solving skills really, really do matter. I guess that's where customer loyalty and brand value are really, really built. So yes, AI should make humans better, not redundant. That's my view on this.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that comes down to the point of like the reinvention of BPO. You know, what if you were saying that AI and software is not just replacing what BPOs do, but it's reinventing what you do, then how would you summarize what's changing then?
Lots changing, Mark, and very, very quickly. In fact, I mean, dramatically quickly as well. So I see that BPOs and including the ones I represent are evolving from traditional staffing engines, if you like, into real strategic CX partners. So we're blending data analytics, automation, and human insight to really deliver outcomes that go far beyond merely handling contacts. So it's no longer about service volumes. It's really more about delivering tangible results such as higher customer satisfaction levels or NPS, stronger loyalty, and better conversion. That I think is where things are heading and need to head sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I mean that sounds like there's less of a focus just on staffing and how many FTEs are in the contact center, and this, you know, these kind of traditional metrics that we've seen and measures that are used for pricing projects, and more of a focus on the solution itself.
Absolutely, and we're tending now not to think about a number of FTE or delivery locations and so on and so forth. So that shift's definitely happening within TP, with whom I represent, as you're aware. So AI really does let us measure value in new ways. So response accuracy, automation, savings, customer sentiment, lifetime value. So the whole pricing element, the whole commercial modeling can evolve too. So instead of per head models or per hour models, we're really moving towards performance-based models that reward efficiency and that reward outcomes as well. So it's more of a transparent, value-driven way of working. That's my notion on this, and I think this is where things are definitely heading.
Is that how you would approach a conversation with like a potential client then? If, let's say, someone came to you and said, look, you know, my current internal headcount is 500 FTEs. What are you going to quote me for a 500 FTE solution? Would you then turn around and say, look, we actually need to look at this in a you know, in a completely different, like a transformational way, rather than just pricing it up the same way that you're doing it internally?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we don't want to get into this conversations commoditization. So we're way beyond that, as you're aware. So I really start those conversations with what matters most to them, what matters most for their brand, and that's consistency. It could be control, and it's definitely trust as well. So tech platforms can connect people, but they don't manage what I call performance elements, cultural elements, or even compliance as well. And that's where I think the BPOs can shine. So we bring structure, we bring governance, and we can bring brand alignment to the mix as well. So when AI or gig workers, for instance, are part of the solution, they're integrated seamlessly into a unified, high-performing CX ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in fact, you mentioned this in the article as well. You talked about virtual contact centers, gig workers, you know, all of this kind of outcome-based pricing is now possible. So if somebody says, look, you know, I can just buy a tech platform and apply a bit of AI to it, how do you make the case and have a conversation with someone to say, look, you know, you're better off working with a CX specialist rather than just trying to build all of this virtually yourself?
Pause. I haven't prepared that. Let me think.
I think I just rephrased the last question because it says you mentioned virtual contact centers and gig agents. That's in the. I think it is in the article actually.
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, so your question. We're still on pause, right?
Yeah.
So you asked how I would. I mentioned how we would start that conversation about consistency and control and brand resonance, etc. And then you kind of rephrased the question a little bit, and it kind of threw me a little bit because I'm thinking I've just sort of answered that.
Yeah, because you mentioned about the adding the control on top of like if you're going to use something like gig workers, you could blend it in within the kind of framework you've already got. But then I was asking if someone comes to you and says, look, I've seen virtual contact centers available in the cloud. I can buy AI services in the cloud. All of this stuff is possible for me just to buy off the shelf. How do you make the case against someone who just says, it seems as if I can buy the entire solution in the cloud? How do you start a conversation with someone who thinks that's basically all they need?
Right, that's a good question. Let me have a think about that. That's a good question, Mark. Hang on. I'm gonna get some notes here because I looked at this earlier as well.
I mean,
So
I suppose a question might be actually then, is anybody coming to you with a question like that?
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think I could say that nobody's come to me with that question at the moment, but I think as well, there are plenty of providers that do sell off-the-shelf solutions, plenty of techs. I mean, if I think about what our customers,
I can even specify. I mean, Salesforce is a good example.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just say, like, look, there's companies like Salesforce that are saying you can do all of this straight out of the box, virtual contact center, virtual agents. How much of that is sales talk, and how much is just look, technically a lot of it is possible, but the reality is it's not going to really work like that.
Yeah, we had a conversation with a client last week. Basically, said they're inundated daily by tech companies who are trying to sell them off the shelf solutions. But if I kind of flip this on its head, Mark, what I see is that brands that do lead the way in their specific markets, that do outperform the competitors, don't buy capacity. They're looking to design experiences. So our role as a BPO provider is to help them do that at scale, consistently and globally. That's some kind of answer for that. And that's based on say a conversation that we had last week with a client who said, they actually said TP's behind the curve. We're getting inundated daily with tech companies that are claiming to do what you can do with off-the-shelf solutions. So I think I could, if you've paused it, I could probably answer that and maybe give this example because it's real.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just ask this one again, then a little bit differently. Then.
Okay.
Okay. So there's tech companies out there that are saying that a lot of this stuff is available off the shelf. I've seen companies like Salesforce talking about offering virtual contact centers in the cloud, the ability to plug in automated agents. So your AI is kind of, again, off the shelf. I mean, if you're talking to someone who says, I can just buy all this stuff off the shelf and it's available in the cloud for a monthly subscription, how do you sort of respond to that and say, in your experience of working with hundreds of companies delivering real CX solutions, can you really just go out and buy this for a monthly subscription?
Well, that's a great question. And, this actually happened to us last week. A partner, a client of ours actually said they're inundated on a daily basis by tech companies, if you like, technology companies, trying to sell their wares and trying to sell them off-the-shelf solutions that will outperform traditional models and so on and so forth. So what I kind of think about when faced with this, and I've got to be honest, it doesn't happen very often, albeit I mentioned an example last week. I need to sort of reframe this whole sort of challenge and kind of just challenge the thinking as well, albeit politely, of course, as well. So, of course, there are plenty of providers that will provide off-the-shelf solutions. But what we've found is the brands that are real leaders in their space and their industries, the brands that really outperform their competitors, they don't buy capacity, they don't buy commoditized products. And so what they're looking to do is design experiences. So our role as a BPO partner is to really help organizations do that at scale, both consistently and globally as well. And that then really shifts the focus, if you like, from I guess, price and commoditization to more brand experience and differentiation. That's I guess it's not a standard answer because no two clients are different, no two clients are alike or different. But that's what I say. We're designing experiences at the end of the day, not capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that your final point there kind of answers it very succinctly, that no two clients are actually the same. So maybe you could buy some solution off the shelf, but if you're planning to deliver a fantastic customer experience, you're not going to be able to just buy that automatically without actually getting an expert to help you improve and refine it.
No, absolutely, Mark. I think if the buyers, especially if they're outcome focused, off the shelf gets them a service desk. What brands, and I'm not going to mention brands we work with, but they're leaders in this space, media, entertainment, retail, etc., banking, finance, and so on. They're after growth. They're after penetrating new markets, and a customer experience layer that actually drives NPS, that drives loyalty, that drives revenue. That's not something you can get out of a box. It's not something you can buy in a box, for sure not. So we're not, again, this is kind of reinforcing what I talked about as well. We're not selling people at the end of the day. We're building performance ecosystems.
And I think that's the key point here, isn't it? That the reputation of BPOs has always been the big box full of people, the warehouse style contact center. And I think that, from what you've said, the model has evolved.
Absolutely, Mark. You're absolutely right.
Okay, I mean, just to wrap up then, and I'm just sort of throwing this out as a surprise to you, but what are you looking forward to in like 26? Because we're in the final quarter of the year for a lot of industries. Travel, retail. This is quite a busy time. But what are you sort of hearing in the marketplace that you think might be interesting going into next year?
Oh, let me think, Mark. That's a great one to finish off. I mean, I think there'd still be continued growth and market expansion. I believe and understand that the global outsourcing, the BPO industry is still projected to expand rapidly, with forecasts positioning the sector to exceed 525 billion by 2030. But again, there'll of course be constant margin pressure, repricing of services as more automation, AI, and process standardization matures. Buyers will expect more bare metal costs, lower margins, and some deals are already being renegotiated when providers can incorporate automation into the delivery model. So this means that BPO vendors will need new levers, scale, differentiation, differential value add, domain specialization, or indeed platform models as well. I think also, and I'm thinking about the sectors where I work specifically, so cross-border delivery, data sovereignty, privacy laws, labor laws, subcontracting risks, and supply chain transparency will also all be front of mind as well. I think outsourcing decisions, I think about ethical outsourcing decisions will also increasingly factor in labor practices, living wage, sustainable operations, and most definitely diversity and inclusion and social impact as well. So again, in that respect, impact sourcing, we're using outsourcing as a lever for inclusive economic growth in lower income regions will continue to gain more traction. I think all of those things are kind of going to continue to help shape the industry as we get into 2026 and beyond.
All right, excellent. That's a great summary and a lot to look forward to in the next couple of years.
Hope so, Mark, as well. I've spent 20, 25 years in this industry. It's been fun. It's been most enjoyable, and no reason why that can't continue. I'm pretty sure of that.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul.
You're very, very welcome, Mark. Thanks again for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.